welcome back to another fan reading on Tales of the Creeps. Before I get started, me and my brother and we got a new dog. His name is Duke. He's a full-bred German Shepherd. That's why the door's not closed, because he's still trying to get used to the house. So if you see him walking just kind of around up and down, then that's Duke. So, because, yeah, like I said, I don't want to freak him out by just closing the door. So, today we are looking at a story called Fear. This is by the same author who wrote Thank You for Recycling. Great body horror descriptions, super disturbing, and just all around a great author. I highly recommend you check out his work. What's his name again? Savings Cut 3465. So I will leave a link in the description below so you can check him out. Now forgive me, I don't remember the name of the person who drew the thumbnail, but once I do, I will leave that in the link in the description below. Now, another thing before we get started, this has an NSFW post on it, so I have no idea what I'm about to read or get into. I am completely blind going into this like you all are, so I'm very excited. So let's get into this. I am very, very excited. The stench had gotten worse every day since Sarah left. She was the heart of this house, and now without her, it rotted around me. 93 days have passed since she left. Over 3 months of excess and misery, watching the walls of filth grow around me. My only sense of day-to-day progression. I felt as though she left me with a hole in my stomach. One I relentlessly tried to fill, but her impression was too intricate. The crude substitutions of food and drink only seemed to stretch and warp her outline. Things hadn't always been this way. I suppose I was always a bit of a slob, but it used to be more manageable. I worked at a dump, compacting mountains of trash, so my tolerance to filth had always been a bit more endurant than most. But after the car accident, after Molly and my back injury, I grew less and less capable of cleaning up after myself. I was no longer able to work either, forced to retire and draw disability. I spent all my days stewing on my grave mistake, replaying my sweet Molly's scream from the back seat over and over in my head. Things had just gotten worse, to the point where Susan could no longer manage to deal with the trail of mess I left behind with my every step. I didn't blame her for leaving. I just had no idea how to continue without her. I had nothing now. Nothing can ever prepare you for losing a child. When Molly died, it felt as though the world should end around me, like a fundamental law of reality and decency had been irreproachably violated to an extent that the world should stop moving. But it just keeps going. Cluttering mounds of trash tangled with clothes hid the floors and surfaces, a crude collage from hundreds of binges, each piece of memory flashing in my mind as my eyes roved around the room. I hadn't slept that night before, just catatonically, stared at the mold growing down from my ceiling. It started as a splotch on the leaky ceiling that Sarah had routinely sprayed with bleach to cull its growth. I'd allowed it to grow. I'd even take to talking to it, reminiscing about times I spent with my family. Back when the world made sense. Yep, there it is. Sorry. My bladder ached as I lay in bed. Typically, I would just use one of the bottles covering my nightstand, but they'd all been filled to the brim. My bed sheets felt like the scabbed skin of a junkie, scratching me with its brittle, chewed nails as I rolled toward the edge and grabbed my cane. Ugh. Ew, I didn't like that description. That made me uncomfortable. That made my skin crawl. Something damp and furry squelched under my foot as I pushed through the trash and landed on the carpet. Digging a path with my feet, the matted carpet felt like clay under my feet, like I was walking through a muddy lake of trash as I tried to hurriedly dig a path to the bathroom. I grabbed the door and pulled, but it was barricaded. My bladder felt like it would give with each consecutive tug of the door. I edged the door along until it was finally wide enough to slide my bulk through. Now in a full panic for relief, I trampled over the pile, feeling it rough and scratchy against my feet. After I descended to the peak of the pile, still feet away from the toilet, I dropped my sweatpants around my knees. I relieved myself, then hesitantly grabbed my scale from the counter. I knew the result weren't going to be good, but my morbid curiosity required me to attach a number to attach a numerical value to my sense of self-deprecation. The number spun so fast that it looked like it may fly off the scale, passing the maximum of the 300 pounds and landing on the 50 mark. My God, look at I gained 40 pounds in the last 3 months. Let out a sigh, but quickly went quiet as I heard something coming from the hallway. A soft, familiar, harmonious whisper. A tune I recognized distinctly as it scored the memories that looped in my head on repeat. It was "Can't Help Falling in Love with You," our song, and her ringtone. Turned around and hurried back to my room, tripping lightly over the mound behind me in my desperation to catch her call. Entering the hallway, my foot clipped against the tunnel of trash, sending it avalanching over the path in front of me. Began to trample over the pile, feeling it crunch under my feet as I hurried along. Stepping through the doorway, I saw her name surrounded by hearts on my phone, but my balance started to waver. It felt as though the pile started to shake below me, and I fell face forward. My head smashed hard into the metal bed frame, and my forehead split open as I groggily landed on the pile of trash. Ugh, gross. I felt dizzy and confused as I raised my head. I was lost and entranced by the sound of her song, so I tried to recall what I was doing. Then the music stopped, and it came back to me. I have to call her back. I felt blood streaming down my face and dripping off my chin as I stood to my feet. My balance was still wobbly as I made my way to the phone. Blood slickened my phone, my thumbs leaving the crime scene around the screen as I frustratedly tried to call her back. Turned on speaker and listened to each dial tone marked the descent toward disappointment. I just needed her to hear her voice, I thought. My foot nervously tapped on the damp spot, matching the rapid beat of my heart against my ribs. The sixth tone sounded with no answer, left me with a pathetic frown on my face as the robotic voice sent me to her voicemail. "Hi, this is Sarah. Sorry to miss your call. Leave a message after the beep." I looked at my phone, wiping the dragging lines of running blood on my shirt before seeing she'd left a voicemail. "Hey Matt, this is Sarah. Just calling to let you know I'm going to be coming to grabbing the last of my stuff next Friday. Hope you're taking care of yourself. We'll get coffee, then talk about all this. I still love you, Matt." The relief of her voice used to bring was gone. Instead, it just stung at the circumference of the hole in my stomach. That last line echoed through my apathetic void in my mind. I still love you. What did she mean by that? Was he just being nice? Or is there hope for us still? I replayed it 6 times, each time with the naive hope that the next listen would bring some clarity to the statement, that I'd pick up on subtle nuance that clarified the debacle. But each time just increased my stress and twisted the ambiguity of the message into a self-inflicted weapon of conspiratorial thoughts. Anxious thoughts recklessly looped around my mind, like a train off its rails, moving in concentric circles with exponential momentum. You have a way with words, author. You have such a good way with words that my brain cannot keep up. I fell back to my typical last line of defense for these episodes. I went to the kitchen. The floor felt sticky on my feet, like the grime was trying to trap me there. Saying, "Stay and indulge further," I swung the fridge door open, letting loose the trapped stench of rot. Plate of burgers that Sarah had left to thaw back, she left abruptly. I held my breath as I reached the rack above it to grab a 12-pack of Bud Light. The door clanked slightly against the glass bottles as I hurriedly closed it behind them. Opened the pantry, reaching behind the coffee to grab the pack of snowballs. Felt something furry gaze along my fingers before it squeaked away. Oh. Anticipation and shame swirled in my belly, fighting for dominance as I followed the trail back to the bed. Fell into bed, and my body reflexively opened the first snowball in muscle memory, taking no time to taste as I forced the dry sphere past my lips. Crumbs rained under my belly as I chewed with my mouth forced open. I grabbed another, unwrapping it ravenously with my mouth, still half full and biting half of it off to feel my mouth packed with cake and marshmallow again. I felt myself choking on the dry pastry, heavy and slow in my throat, the narrow streams of air barely worming their way through the crumble, and I started to hack slightly. My throat squeezed against the sweet obstruction. I opened one of the beers and began to pour it over the dense packing, feeling the cake soften to carbonated chocolate mud that dripped down my throat. I continued cramming, rinsing down the fourth, and then fifth, before my stomach began to protest. I let the cake fall from my mouth to my sheets as I quickly grabbed an aluminum bottle from the bedside table, screwed off the top, and wrapped my lips around it. The smell of ammonia hit me as hard as the bile exited my mouth, and I splashed it back into my lips. Ugh. I realized with disgust what I had done. I started gagging as I thrust the bottle away from my face, feeling that splash onto my wrist. I screwed the lid back onto it before throwing it next to my bed, watching as the bottle sank to the bottom, as if dragged. The bottle filled the room with a stench of piss and vomit, so I decided to go to the living room. I was overwhelmed with a vertigo as I stood up. My footing faltered as my mind swirled. I nearly slipped on the same spot from before. I felt significantly deeper and wetter. Sticky red slime rose on my foot as I disgustingly dragged it on the clay-covered carpet to wipe it off. The living room was buried in 2 feet of trash. On a quick scan around, you'd be hard-pressed to identify a single object in the tangled mounds. Outside of the yellow-stained couch and the box TV surrounded by bottles that hid the bottom half of the picture, I plopped down on my lazy boy, pulling the lever and watching as a detritus was thrown across the room. The metal screeched under my weight as my ass form fitted into the seat. Turned on the TV, and the DVD inserted into it started playing a slideshow of pictures and videos from when we were young. A picture of us at the bar popped onto the screen, me holding her in one arm and a beer in the other. I was so young and strong then. She looked so happy, laughing wildly. I don't remember the last time I saw her like that. My nose started to run as tears began to well in my eyes. I felt the pit in my stomach rising, feeling as at risk of swallowing me whole. It demanded I stuff it down. I fixed my gaze on the snack as I forced it into my mouth when our song came on again. I looked up to see us dancing. We twirled around the room, and my mind flashed to the night. We danced for hours, till everyone else had left the cathedral. I haven't been able to dance since the accident. Now I can barely walk on my own. We'd continued to grow distant since that day. She was kind and tried to help me deal with my guilt, but I always felt like she blamed me on some level. I know I do. God, things have gotten so bad. I said as this, a glob of chewed chocolate fell from my mouth and onto my belly, rolling off into the trash. A photo of our last Christmas appeared on screen, and I was reminded when this room was cluttered with presents and shining decorations rather than filth. I began to sob wildly at the sight. Molly tore open the last of her presents as I saw a big plush rat. "I love it so much," she said, squeezing her arms around it. "I'll name him Mr. Cheesy." God damn it. I pressed my hands against my stinging eyes. I have to get this all clean. I need Sarah back. God, I can't live like this. I continued to eat as I sobbed uncontrollably until I fell asleep with my mouth still full. Oh, gross. Man, listen, I love how, just nasty and just gross he is making this character. Good on you, man. Alright, where was I? I'm sorry, I lost my place. Okay, I woke to a sound coming from my bedroom. It was too difficult to decipher with my mind still fuzzy, but it sounded like a pained groan. At first, I thought it must be an animal that had gotten trapped. I grabbed my beer and my cane and started toward the door. But as I got closer, I realized that wasn't an animal. Impossibly. I thought it sounded like Sarah. Fuck, I thought. Did she come through early to get her stuff? She sounds hurt. Hope she didn't have slipped in the piles of trash and injured herself. I'd never be able to stomach the shame of my mess if my mess got her hurt. I began to rush towards the door as fast as I was able. "Sarah, are you okay?" My throat tensed and nostrils revolted as the overwhelming stench of filth that hit me as I opened the door. Covered my nose, adrenaline stifling a gag as my panicked eyes darted around the room, but I didn't see her. Looking to the corner of the room, I saw the large heap of trash next to the bed twitching incrementally. The piece of trash seemed to flare out, giving a brief glimpse of red skeletal base that connected the individual pieces. "Matt?" Sarah's voice would call from the pile, interspersed between shrill, painful cries in her voice. My sense of fight or flight sent me racing. I just wanted to stop the torturous screams, so I began to dismantle the pile. I Grabbed the bag of chips as it began to, as its base of. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I am butchering this. I grabbed a bag of chips as its base and began to pull, but it felt stuck on. I felt sticky skin pulling the wet adhesive. It made a sloppy, sloshing noise, and I was hit with a stench of spit, stale soda, and piss. Her scream heightened in pitch, causing my eardrums to ring. Blood rushed from under the bag as red tendrils pulled against my grip. Matt, you're hurting me, Matt! My grip released and the bag snapped back into place with a wet clapping noise that sent sticky red liquid spritzing around my face. It tasted like Sarah's mouth. If she'd eaten the contents of a dumpster, it felt sickening and longing at the reminder, but it also tasted nostalgic and heavenly. Oh, do not. Oh, is he gonna have sex with the trash? Please do not make love to the trash monster. Please, Matt, I'm so hungry. Please, bottle. Give bottle. What the fuck are you? It's me, Matt. No, this doesn't make any sense. What do you want from me? Matt, please. I'm so hungry, Matt. Help me or I'll die. The words felt good to hear in a perverse way. It had been so long since I'd felt needed. I'd gotten so used to being the one needing help. I stood frozen, eyeing the bottle of beer in my hand. Do you just want the bottle? Yes, please. I drank the rest of the stale beer and threw it into the pile. Watched as the trash avalanched over it, heard a cracking of glass and watched as the shimmering fragments began to spread around the exterior of its mass, the light catching off, making it shine with a brilliant radiance. I love you, Matt. Why do you sound like her? It's me, Sarah. Pain shot up my knees as I fell in front of the pile in gawking reverence. I saw small red spots speckled around it, rippled, moved in waves through the crimson puddles. I touched one of them with my thumb and felt warm blood spread under my finger. It went slightly. Soft, please. I kept my eyes on the pile as I backed out of the room, closing the door behind me. I heard the pie through those doors humming the tune of Sarah and my song. Losing my mind, I said, rubbing my thumbs on my temples. I went back to my chair, my feet unconsciously sinking me to the harmony of our song as my body swayed slightly. I plopped down, grabbing a snowball and tearing it from the pack. Stared at it with my hand, mouth open in preparation. I felt disgusted at the sight of it. My stomach turned as the thought of scarfing it down. I threw it into the pile. Suddenly felt a wave of relaxed exhaustion hit me as my adrenaline crashed. I've got to get out of here. Man, I need to get away from this mess. I went to the one clean room in the house, my daughter's room, left completely untouched since she passed. Walking in felt like I was entering a different world, from a house buried in trash to a bastion of childhood whimsy with pink walls sporting posters of fantastical creatures and landscapes. Her bed was made tightly, and rather than disturb it, I lay on the floor, snuggled tightly with Mr. Cheesy as the song still faintly echoed to me. Oh, another one. Oh my gosh. I buried my face into it, feeling my tears dampen and its fur against my face. I cried until I fell asleep. I was awoken by Sarah's groans reverberating into the room. My head rushed up, and I felt for a fleeting moment, expected to see her next to me before the memories of the last few months flooded back to my mind. Felt worried by the insanity of last night, I looked up at the clock. It was 3 a.m. I scrambled to my feet, noticing I had left my cane in the living room, before I dragged myself, with only one slight limp, back into my room. Matt, please, I'm so hungry. Looked at the pile, which was noticeably smaller, specks of blood dotting its surface and shrunken into brown, shriveled scabs. I just fed you, I said, still bleary-eyed and disoriented, my head pounded and swirled in confusion. Her whines felt like spikes penetrating through my clouded brain, insanely standing as the only point of cohesion and understanding in my confused state. More, please, more, I'll die, Matt, and you'll lose me. I tried to focus my thoughts. Was this a good idea? I'm not sure what this thing is, but I was unsure of most things at the moment. My head aching and disoriented and unable to grasp my reality. Sarah's voice let out a blood-curdling cry that cleared any thoughts of moral decisions and sent me into a primal scramble to save the one I loved. Sarah, are you okay? I said it, but I got no response. I kicked myself slightly for calling this thing Sarah. But my panic did not subside with the realization. Shook the pile, feeling the bottles lazily drag as if though viscous liquid. It sounded wet, and the smell of bile emanated from the opening it formed. I watched as a bottle consolidated itself into a ball before it began sucked into the center of the pile, causing it to shrink down a couple of inches as its center. "I'm dying, Matt," his voice cried weakly. I grabbed as much garbage as I could fit in the breadth of my arm, feeling greasy stains and backwash soaked through my white t-shirt as I hauled load after load towards the pile. I dumped the trash into it and watched as it seemed to open out, widening the holes and swelling the loose detritus in its many openings. Smooth, translucent, red mallow lined with black furry veins extended from the openings, biting onto the rain of garbage and scarfing it down, blood spurting as it smacked its lips. The pile continued to swell as it ingested more of its food. A small poof of smoke billowed from each of its holes. I watched a 2-liter stick from its peak, still only halfway down. Greasy burger wrappers lubricated its descent, but it seemed to get stuck before the plastic of the bottles began to warp as if chemically heated. The pile doubled in size. I watched as the blood splotches grew to massive patches of blood-sodden, gooey musculature and around the pile, stretched around the bottles and grew over the ridges of crumpled paper and plastic. Grew around the circumference of the puddles with fibrous tendrils that walked down its mass, intertwining to form a wall of soft, sinewy tissue that looked like a massive throbbing tumor. Good Lord, that description! I mean, my reading comprehension does not help, but holy crap, this is amazing. This is so amazingly detailed. I love you so much, Matt. Thank you. You're not really her, but I can be, Matt. I just need more. I wasn't going to be getting any more sleep, so I decided to start cleaning. After all, how bad could this thing be if it was encouraging me to clean my house? It needed to be cleaned when the real Sarah got here anyways. I went to the kitchen and grabbed the dusty box of trash bags and began before heading back to my room. Still limped slightly, but it was better than it had been since the accident. She sang our song as I cleaned, and I was reminded of how Sarah would sing and hum when she cleaned. I filled bag after bag as I awkwardly danced and swayed around the room to her song. I filled 12 bags of what was left on the floor in the room, and also vacuumed the carpet, filling the empty tank of the vacuum 3 times over before the job was done. The mold on the wall had spread rapidly. It was thick in the carpet, around the pile, and spread around the room like a complex vascular system, faintly visible on the dark-stained carpet. "I got a lot for you to eat now. You shouldn't be hungry for a while," I said, my voice shaken slightly with uncertainty. "Oh, Matt, you're so good to me. I would never leave you." I found myself blushing slightly at her words. The bags were heavy and sagged with liquid at the bottom, feeling as though they may burst through as the plastic stained against the weight. Dragged the bags one by one toward her, turned around with it the size of a beach ball, and when I came back with the next bag, it was the size of a washing machine. With its mouths the size of my head and growing, it continued until I dumped the final bag of trash onto it and saw it growing the size of a twin-sized bed and up to the chest of my 5'10" frame. Thick red liquid secreted from under its mass and synchronized burst with the sound of like water drumming against metal. I could feel the sticky liquid pulling between my toes, sticking my feet to the ground, and when I lifted them, thick strings of the stuff came up with my foot, feeling like strings of wet as cement. Furry black veins sprawled across the irregular membrane with the complexity and intricacy of a spider web. Pieces of trash jutted around the dark red stomach, stretching its skin taut and giving it spiny appearance. It looked as if the skin might tear as it throbbed outward. I heard metal and plastic popping and as the jutting imprints of trash compressed it. Though I didn't feel tired while working, after I'd finished I was hit by a wave of exhaustion. Curled next to her in my bed, went to sleep despite it only being 5 p.m. The next day I cleaned the bathroom. The mold had already spread tentacular, hardly visible on the stained black linoleum. I looked into my mirror after I'd cleaned the floor, seeing one of the pupils double the size of the other, with my eyes a bright red. I was able to nearly finish the hallway the same day before I fell from exhaustion at her base. Good Lord, he is working himself to death for this thing, and this thing is totally like playing into like his want and need for love and Sarah. Good Lord. Let's see, where was I? The night I lay down next to the pile and we watched old videos. I watched one of Sarah and me playing with Molly at the park. Pushed her high into the air on the swing, and she screamed with joy and mock fear as she soared into the air. "Thank you, Daddy," she screamed. "I miss Molly so much," I said with a tear forming in my eye. A long, slimy tendril wiped my eye. "I know, Matt. So do I." I hugged the slimy mass of flesh, crying my eyes out and feeling the blend of blood and salty tears mix in my eyes. "Do me a favor, please." "What is it, Matt?" "Oh, I'm sorry. Do me a favor, please." "What is it, Matt?" "Stay out of her room. I just want that to remain pure." "I promise, Matt. I won't touch it at all." I wiped the red liquid off my body before crawling into bed. The living room took 3 days to finish. As if I finished wiping down the surfaces, I wrung the gray liquid from the filthy paper towels over her and watched as small mouths gaped around her body. Slurping down the running gray water, I even dumped the nearly full pack of snowballs into one of the bags. I hadn't worked like this in years, but it didn't feel like work. I didn't take breaks. I didn't feel I needed them. I felt more rested now cleaning 19 plus hours a day than I had sleeping more than half of it away. Now that I had Sarah's angelic voice to lull me to sleep, my days had gone from lethargic fatigue to a focused drive, propelled by an almost manic energy. She sang our song on repeat as I jovially floated around the house. My motion in sync with her harmony as I cleaned. The fungal map moved under my feet, tickling me slightly. She now nearly filled the entire room, touching all four corners and slopping up all at her center. She nearly touched the light fixture. I tore open the bag as I stood in the doorway and began feeding the damp towels into her front-facing mouth. "Why don't you look like her?" I said as I grabbed one of the used towels from the bag and fed it into the bulbous lips of the mouth in front of me. "I'm trying to, but it's hard. Just plastic and paper. I need flesh, Matt. Flesh to make flesh." Her words were uninterrupted as her mouth closed around my fingers and stuck the towel away from my grip. I thought about the meat in the fridge. I'd hardly opened the fridge in the last several days, so it had slipped my mind. I fed her one more of the towels before heading to the kitchen. I don't trust this. I don't trust this at all. Alright, hold on. Water break. Okay. I opened the door to the fridge, and though the meat had progressed into its rot, the smell no longer offended me, but it was recognizable change from the prevailing scent of filth that I'd gotten used to. I grabbed the plate and headed back to her, sliding the meat down into her mouth, and then watched as its tongue extended and licked the molds and bread. I'm sorry. I have an immature mind. Excuse that. I then watched as its tongue extended and licked the molded blood from the plate. The flesh above her mouth began to bubble and rise into a nub of pink translucent flesh that bloomed out from the stomach from in front of where I stood in the doorway. Flakes of scaly pale skin scattered patchily around the nub, which was the size of a fist and twitched lazily. "This is a good start, Matt, but I'm going to need more." "Okay." I pulled out my phone and made an order. "Lie with me, Matt. You've given me so much. Hold me." Is this the NSFW part? I'm expecting it. You can't tell me it's not gonna happen. I lay down in a thick puddle of red at her feet, my legs forced out of the doorway, her soft flesh forming around my head. I can feel the sticky liquid worming into my ear canal as I made my head comfortable and went to sleep. The next morning I sat up from the puddle of crimson, feeling it peel off my skin in stringy vines that snapped as I sat up. My left ear coughed out a thick red molasses as I smacked the right side of my head. "Good morning, my love." Her voice had been getting more like Sarah's every day. Now it was indistinguishable. "Good morning," I said, rising to my feet. I went to the bathroom and grabbed a towel off the sink, wiping the liquid off me. While I was in the bathroom, I thought to step on the scale. It read 270, which was ecstatic to see, and I realized how ridiculous I was to think she could be bad for me. So far, she'd only helped me to clean my house and lose weight. I lifted my shirt and saw a pile of loose skin bulging around my midsection and sagging down into my waist. I returned to the room, wrung the towel into the pile, and watched pink tube-like appendages stick from the mouths and began to suck the liquid dripping down it. The meat, it's on its way. Yay, thank you, Matt. But the house now clean, I had nothing better to do than to wait at the door for the delivery, preparing an explanation for if the driver had a remark about the strange order. I'd used the last of my monthly check to make the purchase and was eager to see the results. I thought about how wonderful it would be, even if it wasn't really Sarah. If it sounded like her and looked like her, and made me feel the way she did. Was there a difference? The thought was interrupted by a banging at the door. I cracked the door open to see a man standing with a bag clustered in his hands. He eyed me oddly as I reached past the cracked door to grab the bags wordlessly. I carried the bags into the room and set them in front of the pile. 12 frozen chickens. Thank you so much, Matt. But can you do me a favor? What is it? Don't watch. I don't like that at all. My large, sweaty hand slipped under the tight plastic, feeling soft, wet skin over the hard, frozen center. After stripping them all bare, I began to insert them from head to toe into the orifice. It was too tight to enter at first, but as I rubbed it around the hole, I watched it gape wider and began to drip sticky brown liquid that made the hole more malleable. I listened to the sweet, familiar sounds of Sarah's moan. Oh, gosh. Oh, no. As I pushed the raw meat with all my force, filling it deep and inch by inch, the legs felt stuck and I had to reach into the hole and clasp one side of its interior wall, widening it out to force the rest in. Felt the warm, fleshy walls of her entrails around my fingers as my hand pressed the rest of poultry inside of her. Oh, gosh. I began to cry and pulled my hand out, noticing it was bright red and stinging under the brown liquid coating it, as if from slightly caustic solution. Are you okay? Do you need me to stop? No. Keep going. Gosh. Oh, this has definitely sexual tones. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's just a lot. I listened to the slopping sounds of meat being digested as I forced my focus to inserting each of the chickens, feeling the orifice widen and moisten with each consecutive intrusion. The last few of the birds entered in with cease and began to dissolve as soon as they touched the brown liquid. I only had to start them into her before the mouse slurped the rest of it into her mouth. As I pushed the remainder of the last chicken into her, an intense burning sensation made me tear my hand away as it made contact with sludgy brown lubricant. Okay, you can look now. Her skin was white and pink. Small bumps lined the back, the blank human torso and face with bones jutting occasionally through the skin. Slivers of fat draped down from her ears, nose, and lips, and down to cover her nipples, but despite the grotesque exterior, it had formed into the shape of Sarah's near perfectly. There was a small pale bump that spread under her form. I slid past the mass of flesh to get into the closet, sat in the back, wrapped in plastic was her wedding dress. I slid past her again, unwrapped the dress. Oh gosh, it signaled her to raise her arms. I slid the dress onto her. It brunched at her hips to form a flowing white reef where her torso started. I approached her closely, pulling a small, sharp shard of bone that stuck out from her cheek. My eyes met hers, milky white. Now our bodies touched, feeling my shirt dampen with cold liquid as I caressed my hand down her cheek, feeling it freeze thaw under my touch. I kissed her, tasting cool blood and hard fat in my mouth, feeling the fat coat my tongue as it melted from the heat of my mouth. I love you, Sarah, I said, pulling away and watching the red fluid drip from her mouth onto the dress. I love you too, Matt. I wiped the fluid off my face, offering her my hand, to which a vascular tongue stuck out from its mouth and licked it clean. Why don't you burn me like you do the trash? Because I choose not to. The harmony she hummed put me in a trance. Our bodies came together. We began to dance. I don't know how long we danced for. My feet went numb, but still effortlessly found the rhythm of her song. Night came and darkened the room, and our silhouette still swayed against the ambiguity of shadow. Light would pour in, showcasing our love to rising sun, only to be replaced once again by the night, rendering us secret lovers under the cloak of anonymity. I felt the lump on her stomach, slowly growing as we danced. Time lost any meaning within the harmonious display of love. Each sway felt like it could last forever. It was a display of the cruelty of time that a moment of such remarkable beauty could end. But such cynicism was a false presumption, as the next motion complemented the story being told. Day and night we rendered an arbitrary setting for something much more important, one whose passage I hardly noticed before long. As I moved to dip her down, I felt my finger pierce through soft flesh, pulling it away to reveal a black rod on my fingers. I stepped back, seeing the growth was not the size of a bowling ball. "Baby, you okay? You're rotting." "It's just, the meat you bought me was already dead. It'll rot quickly. I want it to last. I need something living." "I can't feed you something living. That's wrong and cruel." The smell of rot wafted to me as I pressed my fingers to my lips, shushing me. A moment of silence passed before I heard squeaking in the walls. "Well, the rats, I suppose. I need to get rid of them anyways. What's the harm?" I went to the living room and grabbed the box of snowballs that I had left untouched on the coffee table for several days. Opened one, carried it to the kitchen, and left it on the floor as I waited. About 30 minutes passed before one of the vermin began to sniff at it. I approached slowly, carefully not to alert it to my presence. As it began to bite into my treat, I grabbed it from behind, scratched and clawed in my hand, and despite the pain, I kept a single-minded ambition to carry it to her. Oh, excuse me. As I walked through the bedroom door, it bit down hard on my hand, piercing through it and sending blood streaming down my palm and into its furry coat. I quickly pressed my hand through Sarah's stomach. The creature's cries were frantic in the stomach, but died off quickly. I looked up from nursing my wounded hand to see her clouded pearly eyes roll over and now showing beady red pupils as a tuft of scraggly hair sprouted from her scalp. I'm going to go get you more," I said with an exasperated breath. As I walked through the hallway, I looked at Molly's door, seeing the mold had started to ease its way underneath it. I was filled with righteous indignation as I slung her door open and saw that its serpentine path of mold had now lined most of the carpeting. It had even crawled over the plush rat. No. I marched back into the room. "Who the hell do you think you are? You stay the hell out of my daughter's room. You've got no goddamn right. I told you to never go in there." "It wasn't me, Matt. Please listen." I was filled with fury. I grabbed the bulging lump and I began to rip it from the pile, watching the soft skin tear. I hadn't put strength like that into something in a very long time. I screamed and cried insanely, pleading with me to stop and listen. I felt a sense of triumph at the display of a newfound strength as my skin ripped and plummeted into my back. But my sense of pride was shortcut by a higher-pitched scream piercing through Sarah's, one that's played through the mind every day since the accident. The ball of flesh flattened out and laid flat over my face. I carefully pulled it off my face, laying it on the ground as I rose to my knees. "Daddy? Why did you hurt me, Daddy?" Molly's face was carved into the underdeveloped bloody mess. "No. It hurts." Her voice was trailing off into a whisper. "Please, God, no. I've killed her again. God, why? What could this happen to me?" "I can save her, Matt. Give her to me." I pressed the flap over the leaking hole in the stomach and watched as the skin seemed grafted on itself roughly. "I can heal her, Matt. But I'm going to need something big. I need a person." "I can't do that. It's the only way, Matt." "Okay, just let me think. I need to think of this, through." My head still felt dizzy and clouded. I didn't know how long I'd been up or when the last time I'd eaten or drunk anything was. There's no time to think, Matt. Someone's here. A knock came from my door. "Wash yourself off quickly, Matt. You need to lure them in." I sprinted toward the bathroom, turning on the shower and rinsing the dried blood from my skin and matted hair, sending it pooling into the tub below me. It's his wife. It's the real Sarah. "Just a minute!" I shouted. Glad my last pair of clean clothes from the dryer that had been sitting there for the last several months. Thought I could be a nosy neighbor asking me about the smell or the landlord, but I had no choice. They were insistent on coming in. They would need to be disposed of. Looked out the peephole to see who the unfortunate victim would be. It was Sarah. Shit, I whispered. Had it been 2 weeks already? Everything had been moving so quickly. I stood there in awe as she knocked again. I saw her eyes go wide before narrowing inquisitively. Hey, Matt, how are you? Wow, you've lost a lot of weight. Yeah, I've been dieting, I suppose. I'm good, though. Yeah, I've been really good. How have you been? I said, trying my best to appear casual as my heart pounded in my chest. I'm fine. You have to excuse me. I've been sick with COVID, but I'm mostly over it now. Besides, still not being able to taste or smell anything. Can I come in? She said, blowing her red nose into a tissue. Yeah, just come into the kitchen. I'll make a pot of coffee. I let her in, hoping she wouldn't see the black fungal map under her feet. Led us through the hallway. Wow, it's spotless in here. Looks so good, Matt. I'm proud of you. Of course, Sarah. I just want us to work. I know, Matt. I do too. I closed my eyes as I listened to the sound of her humming behind me while I poured the water into the pot. But my soothed state diminished as I realized there was another humming matching hers from farther away. I abruptly turned around and took my seat, hoping to distract her before she noticed the mimicry. I've been really worried about you, Matt. The words echoed from the room. I saw Sarah turn her head toward the noise and confusion. I'm doing great. There's no need to worry. I've just missed you a lot, I said quickly, trying to break the silence. I've missed you too. She squinted her eyes. Is there an echo in here? Yeah, I guess now that it's clean, you know? Right. Sarah, I need you in my life. I can't stand to be without you. These last few months have been miserable. You were miserable with me too, Matt. I'm not the problem in your life. I appreciate the efforts you've been, but I need more than for you to clean the house once. It's not a one-time thing. I promise. I'll keep it clean. Just please, I'm nothing without you. This is what I mean. I can't be solely responsible for your well-being. I've been through this cycle with you before. I've seen you make changes. They just go away over time. I just can't do that anymore, Matt. I've made my decision, she said before once again sneezing into her napkin. My expression went cold. That's fine. Please, if you don't mind, can you grab the rest of your stuff from the room? I can't bear to see it anymore. I understand, she said, standing up from the table. I watched as she swung the door open in front of her, watched as she was immediately hit by trash avalanche down to her feet, and how the trash seemed to caramelize atop her feet. She tried to tug them, but she screamed in agony as they refused to move. The red flesh began to form back around the trash that was burying Sarah's lower half. Sarah made eye contact with her deformed mimic. My heart sank as she turned back to look at me. With tears in my eyes, I replaced my hand on her back and forced her closer to the other Sarah. She stopped resisting it as Molly's face appeared in front of her. I love you, Molly's voice said. She closed her eyes and extended her arms, trembling as she allowed the pile to embrace her. Her skin began to soften and melt away, and I watched the pink salmonella hands dig under the melting skin like clay before painting it over her rotting flesh. Her meat and bones sagged in place as her stomach formed around her, consuming her body into the all-consuming and membranous stomach. It was a near-perfect imitation of her. Only the smell was off. The smell was family, all the filth I'd acquired with love. She floated across the pile, resting on her back where the bed was. Lay with me, she said. Her nose began to droop off. She reshaped it quickly, leaving it asymmetrical and twisted. I crawled over the soft tissue of her stomach. Pain I felt meant nothing as my palms melted into place with each stride in my crawl. In my crawl, or when I ripped my sticky, melting hand to get closer to her. Tears dripped from my face and sent the gore from my hand running down her belly. I crawled on top of her, feeling her skin now soft and warm, smelling the scent of her perfume faintly over the overwhelming stench of rotten trash. I felt myself dissolving into her mouth as I sank down, my silhouette forming into the gelatinous flesh perfectly. It was the most delightful sensation I've ever known, to be fully embraced and accepted as what you are. I heard a whisper before my body sank fully into the stomach. Thank you, Daddy. Lord. That is so much to take in. Just, oh my gosh. I honestly have no words. Like, I don't even know how to put what I'm feeling into words because I'm not good at it. That was amazingly well written. I enjoyed the descriptions, the weird sexual undertones, like the desperate need for love and attention. It was just, it was so good. That's all I can have to say about it. It was just good. So thank you for letting me read your story. It was amazing, and I hope to read more from you sooner or later. But honestly, that's all I have. That's all we got for today. So, like I said, all the links are in the description below. Please check out the author, really chill guy. We talk in my Discord a lot, so I'll leave that in the description below if you want to chat with us. Just hang out, see what you're up to. Yeah, but yeah, that's it. So, thank you all. You all have a great night. Later.